So I'm down here by Gene and Georgetti's, which is one of Chicago's famous steakhouses. And the new Bally's Casino is coming into Chicago. And I don't know how Gene and Georgetti's and Mastro's and Gibson's and Hugo's and these other higher end restaurants, because this is going to be a very beautiful, elegant, high end casino. And I don't know how they're going to tap in to this new Bally's, and I don't know how they're establishing relationships with the Bally's Casino where it is right now. But also, what is the nightlife going to be? One thing about a casino, they run 24/7. And so when you open up a casino, people are going there 24/7, and then they're going to look for dining and entertainment within and outside of the casino, because that casino will also have a hotel. And people will be staying at other hotels. And so that's why Vegas is 24/7. And when you start getting more casinos, you have to go 24/7. The casinos go 24/7. They're catering the first, second, third shift people when they're off. And so the casino goes around the clock. And so people are going to be looking for, things going around the clock. So I'm wondering, how is this area, like up here, this restaurant district and everything else, because when you're building the new casino, like Boss Bar and that, how are you going to promote this area? Like here, Hubbard Street used to have lots of, it has Howling at the Moon, which is the dueling piano bar, and it had many other places, and it has this sip and dip. But again, I don't know what this place is that opened up on the corner, but they're going to be looking, like O'Callahan's is an Irish bar. It's been here for a long time. It's probably been here the longest of any of these places. And so are they going to revitalize this area? Give it a facelift? Mother Hubbard's been here for a long time as well. So are they going to give this area a facelift? So again, let's go down by the casino. I don't talk to any homeless anymore. They're just going to hell. Whatever their game is. There's all pads and Pacific Gardens and Urban Ministries. There's many places. Salvation Army, that's right down on Clybourne. They're all over the place. So I don't have anything to do with them anymore. There's lots of places for them to go. And if they don't want to go, and I did take them there before, and they did accept them, but if they don't want to go, that's all on them. So I can't go that way. So I don't have anything to do with them anymore. So they're not part of my life anymore. Truly. So they're done. That's on Mayor Brandon Johnson, and let Mayor Brandon Johnson go serve the homeless for a while. Truly. Why doesn't he go work in Urban Ministries or Pacific Gardens for a while? Go serve his own people. Truly. And first of all, you go to any Bally's, any casino in Vegas, and you don't see any homeless people. So what are homeless people doing outside a casino? They don't have any money. They can't gamble. They're loitering. That's against the law. Vagrancy, loitering, all that's against the law. So what would they be doing? I go around Vegas. I didn't see any homeless people, actually. Interesting. And there's endless amount of jobs. So, interesting. But here in Chicago, I guess that's where they gather, outside the casino. Not your turn. So, I'm wondering how this is going to go. That this place is anchoring, and you have Pizza Duo and so on and so forth. And it's in a drive 24/7 business. And then you have Tao down here and a bunch of other restaurants. So what's the mayor doing about going out there? Truly, Mayor Jane Byrne, she moved into the projects and was trying to get things better in the projects. She started a youth baseball team, the Greeny Green All-Stars. If people don't remember, Jane Byrne moved into the projects. How many mayors move into the projects? Chicago is the only big city I know where the mayor, and she was a female, and I like Jane Byrne greatly, she moved into the projects. She lived in the projects. The mayor of Chicago moved into the projects, lived in the projects. And then she started the Greeny Green All-Stars, who I played against. We traveled up from Horner Park. I traveled by myself all the way up to Greeny Green to play them, and started a youth baseball program trying to get kids out of gangs and kids off the street. But she was only a one-term mayor, but she had a lot of good programs. But again, when you in a one-term situation and then she was out, her programs didn't go through. And another Democrat took over, but they didn't continue them on. They just wiped them out. And she had good things going in. So one Democrat comes in after another Democrat, and they change everything and wipe out everything the other Democrat did. Because everybody, instead of enhancing and building and everything else, wipes out everything and starts from scratch every so many years. And we're doing this constant looping, going around in the same loop. It's the hell loop, which the United States is caught in and every other country, except places like China. Their president's there for a long time, and they don't change administrations for long periods of time. And they've had incredible growth, almost 50% growth one year. But they've had incredible high rates of growth because they have consistent administrations. And no one's going to take out the boss. And anyone tries to take out the boss, well, they go 10 feet under. So no one attempts to take out the boss because you just get buried. But the whole point is, the reason people don't understand in America, like under Reagan, we started going someplace and then we had 12 years of good returns because George Bush Sr. continued. But we had a Republican leave, and Bush, he lost to Clinton. Clinton was in there for 8 years. But what did Bill Clinton do? He passed the least amount of legislation of any president in an 8-year term ever. He also, let's not talk about him placing military troops, because he placed military troops all over the place, but didn't give them proper support. But that's a different story. The thing Clinton did, and he's smart. Bill Clinton, I'll give him. He's a very bright man, but misguided. And his wife was misguided. And together, they weren't good for each other. And then people didn't keep him in check. Meaning he wasn't around people that steered him in the right way. He had very bad handlers, people that were backing him in that didn't lay any ground rules. So what happened? Anyways, he did, for the next 8 years, he didn't do anything except welfare reform. And he reformed the welfare system, making it harder to get welfare. Not easier, making it harder. And we needed people to work. And so what did he do with the welfare system? Obama undid it, but Clinton reformed it, making it an up-and-out program that welfare will eventually be cut off, and that you had to get off of welfare and you had to be moving in a positive direction, because it was going to end. Whether you wanted it to or not, it was going to end. And you play this economic experiment with me. I'm not this fucking deadbeat. So you act like you know what you're doing. You have no freaking idea what you're doing. Oh yeah, we studied all the presidents and their administration in our economics. And we had an economist that specialized in just studying the president and his policies, and what president did what, and how long did it take for policies to go into place, and so on and so forth. So he didn't do anything. Truly, he passed the least amount of legislation. Why mess with the system? And he won in a landslide the next 4 years. But he was riding the wave from Reagan. Reagan started it, Bush kept it, Clinton kept it, and it kept on riding. So between the two, that's 20 years of incredible economic growth. And then we had one hiccup in the 1999 because they didn't invest in bandwidth. The internet was growing so fast, the pipeline couldn't handle the rate of expansion. That was the problem. When you do these infrastructure things, you have to plan for growth. And if you don't plan for growth, then it stifles growth. So you have to make sure there's more than enough capacity in the system for the growth. And you have to adjust before it maxes the capacity. And that's the government being proactive. It's like the sewer systems. You know they can't handle the amount of water and flow, and then you upgrade them before they start flooding everything. But you're supposed to anticipate, and when you put buildings here and there, that's water going in, water going out. How many of these buildings are forced to recycle their water? Because if you get these buildings to recycle their water, truly, having water treatment plants requiring buildings above a certain height must have a water treatment plant inside and must recycle X amount of water. Why? Because it takes the pressure off the infrastructure, so when it rains and pours, that it doesn't flood. So it's good for the tenants as well. But how many of these buildings, these taller, like the Sears Tower or John Hancock or Trump Tower, would be required to recycle X percentage of their water? So how many of them are doing this? And even with power, to take off the power lines, they have to incubate so much of their own energy. Truly. If not, then you have to put in all new gas lines, all new power lines, all new water lines. And oh yeah, if you recycle, you take the pressure off the water lines. So do you want to tear things up, or do you want the buildings above a certain size to be self-sustainable? Because that's what they have, and the existing buildings have to adapt. And you give them a period of adjustment, and you give them economic incentive to make the adjustment, but they have to make the adjustment. And this accommodates future growth. It accommodates future growth without having to overhaul all the infrastructure to accommodate it. So they have to generate so much of their own power. They have to recycle so much of their own water, truly. And then they got to manage these different aspects of the building. And this allows for future growth without overtaxing the system. If not, then you have to tear up the streets and you got to put in all new instead of focusing on repaving and upgrading the existing by getting these structures to basically be able to self-manage a certain percentage of their needs to run the building. So getting into recycling, trash, and so on and so forth. Again, so much internally is done with the buildings that above a certain size, they have to have so much internal capacity so it doesn't tax the rest of the system and overflow the system, causing problems. Because people can't upgrade. Like, buildings need so much power and so much things, and they want to upgrade and do this, and they can't. This is what happened to in Vegas, the Wynn Hotel, the Bellagio. They wanted to put in this whole great water thing. But the whole point is you have to recycle water. And that means you got to control the temperature of the water in Vegas. Even when it's 100 and something, you got to chill the water so you don't get evaporation causing humidity. And so they could have done this, but he had to scale back the project. They didn't understand they needed water chillers, and they could have trucked in the original water and just cleaned and recycled the water. And if they keep the water in the fountains in that cold, then it doesn't evaporate. They could have minimized the evaporation. And there's a little additive where you can change it and it won't evaporate until over 100 degrees or so. And they're not, you got to make sure it's friendly, which it is, actually. Adding a little salt to it, maybe. But anyways, the whole point is chilling it down in that doesn't create humidity. And he could have done his full project, and he could have brought in water. And they had to scale back the whole project. And it's a beautiful hotel, but it's nowhere near what he was trying to build. And the reason is because other projects needed their water. And they were doing their projects and trying to build out their projects. And all these architects had to scale back their projects because they couldn't get the right amount of power. They couldn't get the right amount of water. They couldn't get the right amount of this. And it limited the projects that they were going to do. So if you implement this, then it doesn't limit the imagination. And you can do some unbelievable projects here, like in Chicago is what I'm talking about. But you have to put things in place that minimize any possible negativity. And that means when you build these structures, you have to work with your neighbors. So there's other builders who want to do other projects, and they can't do those projects if you tap in too much of the resources, if you overtap. And then we come up with all these retention ponds, and we don't need the retention ponds. We need buildings to start recycling their water in that, minimizing their sewage. Truly. And they can use it to create energy. There are systems that take raw sewage and turn it into energy now. So what they don't recycle, they can turn into energy as well. And this takes the infrastructure, like you're going to build out Mumbai, India. Well, are you going to tear up everything and lay incredible amounts of pipe and everything else? Or are you going to build it into the building where the building is self-sustainable? where all the waste, it has its own treatment, it recycles it, it uses it for energy, it has its own water purification, it can power itself, it can do certain things all by itself. Then you can build out these cities and everything, and you don't have to spend incredible amounts of money digging up and laying incredible amounts of piping and infrastructure needed. And these countries that are extremely poor now can put it into roadways, they can put it into transportation like train lines and highway lines, because they don't have to dig up all the stuff to lay the pipelines for the gas, the water, the sewage, and then they don't have to put in all the electrical lines, and then they don't have to put in a lot of the needed infrastructure. And that money in these poorer communities now can be used for the buildings, they can be used for the roadways, they can be used for public transportation like the RTA and CTA. And now they have money that they found, and they don't have to build out these other things. And that means all these poor communities can rise up very quickly. Rise up very quickly. Truly, these poor communities can rise up incredibly quickly. And so, doing this correctly and taking care of these issues, which they're all addressing and the systems are getting better and better, then it allows all these projects to be done. And you can focus on improving the parks, you can focus on all kinds of things, and you got incredible amounts of money that is saved. And so, oh yeah, and getting back to it, remember the white woman who moved into the projects? Remember the white woman who started urban ministries? So again, I would vote for her for mayor of Chicago. The woman who started urban ministries, she knows how to run infrastructure. She knows how to help pull people out of poverty. She knows how to network. She knows how to create coalitions. And she knows a lot of people. And I would be good with her to be mayor of Chicago. And she's done incredible work for the city. So I would be good with her being the mayor and taking over for Brandon Johnson. And she would get all the black vote. She's done way more for the black community than Brandon Johnson. She was all anti-violence. She was trying to end gang violence and gun violence and all of that. So she would easily get all the black vote, and then she would easily get all the white vote. And then, the Hispanic is she hasn't done much in the Hispanic community, which she could start doing. But she could really gather all this vote, and she could become mayor of Chicago. And I would be fully behind her to be mayor of Chicago. She's an incredibly good person, incredible Christian, and she would be good for the city. And as she shows, she can work with all races, and she works with both sexes. So, again, they talk about him. Well, in a couple years, she could take over. And it'd be nice. And she did the same thing Jane Burns did. I mean, none of the mayors moved into the projects and tried to get it off the ground, but she didn't get reelected. She should have won again, but again, she didn't position herself properly with inside the machine, and she got pushed out. And yes, and that would be, I'm not even going to get into it, but again, I was happy. Lori Lightfoot, they said bring in the light and so on and so forth. I didn't, where was the positive change? And we're down here talking about the casino. They have all kinds of sports betting, and they also, people at the hotel go to games. So remember, the casino should have an event where they're bringing in boxing events. When has Chicago ever hosted a title fight for the heavyweight championship or the light heavyweight championship? Or when has Chicago hosted a UFC event, a UFC championship? Truly, for the title. When has Chicago hosted any of those events? The UFC, professional boxing, any of them? None of them. Mayweather, none of them. Light heavyweights, heavyweights, middleweights, none of them have ever hosted a championship event in Chicago. And nor has UFC. But the casino, Bally's coming into Chicago, well, that's part of the casino bringing in these title fights. So they can bring that into Chicago. And also the casinos can have off-track betting for horse racing. Yeah, horse racing. So, and it's also harness racing like at Maywood Park. I don't even know if Maywood Park exists anymore. But there's horse racing and harness racing. And again, they can bring in the Bally's off-track betting for racing, for horse racing in its different forms. And they can bring in greyhound betting into Bally's. I love going to the greyhound track. Why Tucson would close it down is beyond me. It was awesome. I love watching the dogs run. And if there was any cruelty, they should have changed that. That's through the administration, and they could have made sure the dogs were treated well. But greyhounds, they naturally need to run a lot. It's like golden retrievers. They need lots and lots and lots of exercise. So for them to do the race, it's like horses. They need a lot of exercise. So for them to run would only be a good thing. They need lots of running. So horse racing isn't cruel. It feeds into their natural thing they do. They need a lot of exercise. And you're taking dogs that need a lot of exercise. You're not taking a Newfoundlander or something and running it. You're taking a greyhound, which needs lots of exercise, and using it. And so the dogs win, they stay healthy. So again, they can bring all these types into the new Bally's Casino in Chicago. So from greyhound racing to horse racing to harness racing to prize fighting to UFC fighting. And this can benefit Chicago greatly. And when people come in, they'll go to the Field Museum, the Shed Aquarium, and other things. Truly. They buy tickets and go to all kinds of shows in Vegas. All those rollers, it's all about the perks. They want to go to Circus Olay. And so they want to go to all the plays that are in Chicago. What does the casino host do? They set them up with restaurants. They set them up with going to shows. They set them up going to nightclubs. That's all part of it. So it's not like you're going to pop up a lot of casinos, but the whole point is the one casino, if done right, it can be huge and big, and Chicago doesn't need another. They have Rivers that can expand, that's in the burbs, and they have Indiana that can expand. So, but getting one incredibly good casino in Chicago would make sense. It would help drive people. And they can cross-promote Indiana and everything else. Truly. So, people go over, take the boat to Navy Pier and take a boat ride over to the casinos in Indiana and go over there. So when people stay at properties in Vegas, they gamble at that hotel, but they also go to other hotels. And they move around a little bit. So it creates, they go around, they get to see the sights, they take in plays, they go out to places dinner, and they do a lot of shopping. Those casinos have incredible malls with restaurants and all kinds of clothing stores and so on. So, again, it feeds into the football games and everything else. Now, this is one casino, and if done right, it should be amazing. And it should feed in incredible to the thing. It can't, you want it to be very high-end, very elegant, very sophisticated. You want it to set as a benchmark for the standard of what you want Chicago to be. So you want it to be higher end. You want it to be more elegant. You want it to be more sophisticated. And it brings in these championship fights, and people fly in on their private jets. So people will fly in the Chicago Executive Airport and take limo service down to Chicago to see, per se, the Holyfield-Tyson fight. I'm just going back. Or the Sugar Ray Leonard-Thomas Hearns fight. That was a great one. They had several of them. Or the Roberto Duran Hitman Hearns fight. Or the Roberto Duran, Hands of Stone. Roberto Duran against Sugar Ray Leonard. And Sugar Ray Leonard is living well. And he's very successful in business. And so is Evander Holyfield and others. But they were conservative. Mayweather is doing well health-wise and everything else. But you got to understand, they go out, but they're not party boys. They take care of themselves. The ones that have problem, they overdo it. These individuals, they didn't overdo it. They kept, aware of their health. They indulged a little bit, but they didn't go overboard. And so they maintain good health. Even Tyson is still in good health. Tyson didn't go overboard with the drinking and everything. And so even he is still in good health. So, again, but if you look at Buster Douglas and many others, there's a lot of them. If you take care of yourself and do the right things, you don't have to worry so much about the cognitive. And if they correct the gloves and do the right thing and the conditioning and everything else, and they perfect it, well, the sport has a bright future, just like football, if they do things correctly. So, again, moving forward the right way. So, again, having a casino down here and doing it right and bringing in luxury and elegance and everything. And like I said, bringing Chicago out of the ghetto. And we have, look at these buildings. Look at the Sears Tower and the Trump Tower over here, the Trump Tower. And just look at all these beautiful buildings. So does this say ghetto, or does this say we want to be sophisticated and elegant? It says we want to be sophisticated and elegant. And so I don't understand. Bringing in the casino, doing it correctly, can set a benchmark and bring in these big end prize fights. Here's the fountain, Buckingham Fountain. This is incredibly elegant. Sitting here on the steps watching the sunrise. I did this with Jennifer Kim. I love Jennifer Kim. I never thought I'd be without her. And it hurts me, and I want to cry when I think about it. Still to this day. Because it's something I never imagined losing. But again, I've had to deal with it for 21 years. But again, look at that. They put a hotel on Navy Pier. And they have North Pier. Navy and North Pier need to connect with each other and work together as one body in that area. Then they have the 21. So that has the AMC theater and so on. So they have this Chicago experience now at Navy Pier. And now you can catch your movies at the AMC 21. That's right down the street. It's by North Pier. Navy Pier and North Pier should work together with the 21. And so, again, creating this interconnectiveness. And then, the harbors and so on. So there's great potential in the city, but I don't see the mayor really tapping into the potential in the city. And that makes it very hard for the city to recruit, because millions and millions of people left the state. And that means it was very hard for the recruit top talent because people didn't want to stay here. They were looking to get the hell out. So how can you recruit top talent? And so they want to open up this quantum computing and everything else on the south side. Well, how can you do that with gangbangers and everything? Who the hell is going to go work at these places and worry about stepping outside and there's a black guy? Is he going to mug me or shoot me? They're not going to recruit top talent. They're not going to come anywhere near it. So, again, Silicon Valley. How many shootings do you hear in the news? And I watched. How many shootings do you hear in Silicon Valley? None. How many muggings do you hear about in Silicon Valley? None. How many homeless people do you hear about? None. What do you hear about? Innovation. Incredible amounts of innovation. Incredible amounts of prosperity. San Francisco's real estate. Now, they did have a problem in San Francisco that's not in Silicon, but that was with homeless. But you still didn't have muggings and shootings and that, really. Truly. I have friends that live there that work for Amgen and many other corporations. But the whole point is they could have solved the homeless problem easily. But they're too worried about other issues, like the gay community. Truly. They could have solved the homeless problem easily, but they poured the money into the LGBTQ community. And they neglected the homeless community. They could have solved all the money that we pour into the gay parade, take all that money, stop the gay parade, and pour it into the homeless community. Really, reallocate your resources. And so, how about having a parade about prosperity in that, about all the charities come together, and you have Urban Ministries, Pacific Gardens, PADS, and others about, and Red Cross and Salvation Army and Goodwill, and they throw, all these charities come together and they throw a parade, and the parade focuses on all the different charities and what they do and what their organizations do and how they're helping the city and how they're working through the country and how they're working globally. How about that parade? Let's get rid of the gay parade. And I guarantee you, if I was talking to those charitable organizations, they'd be all for it. And that brings incredible awareness, and they have their floats, and the people in the charities, they get to be on TV. Truly, the ones that are on the floats, and then they get the fellowship by building the floats and everything, and it creates all this awareness for them. So why don't we do that kind of parade in Chicago? And they could talk about their outreach and how they reach out to all these different areas here in the United States and around the world. Truly. Why don't we run that type of parade in Chicago and get rid of the LGBT